Today we're going to look at freedom. It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore, keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery. Behold, I, Paul, say to you that if you receive circumcision, Christ will be of no benefit to you. And I testify again that every man who receives circumcision, that he is under obligation to keep the whole law. Galatians 5, 1-3. Why did Christ set us free? For what did Christ set us free? Paul tells us that it was for freedom that Christ set us free. He set us free from the law, which kept us bound. The law, by its nature, bound us to the effort of trying to fulfill its requirements. We find then that no matter how hard we try to meet the requirements of the law, we always come short. When we come up short, it drives us to try harder to meet those requirements. Therefore, therein lies the problem. The harder we try, the more enslaved we find ourselves. What then is a solution? Paul says it is in Christ we are free. Because Christ has fulfilled the requirements of the law for us. We need to release our lives to Christ to acquire freedom. This means to me that we must turn over our tendency to go back into slavery by putting requirements, no matter how well-meaning, on ourselves or others. It's because Christ fulfilled the law that we don't have to fulfill the law anymore. We see that in the text there was a group of people who believed that it was necessary to have circumcision performed in order to meet what they felt necessary to be honoring to God. We also see that Paul dealt with this problem head on. He comes to the point in Galatians that that those calling for the requirement of circumcision, he says they should just mutilate themselves. Just it's the stupidity of it. He also said that anything added to Christ's sacrificial work nullifies the work of Christ. In other words, when we, even meaning for good, add requirements to our faith, we are putting ourselves back into slavery, into the law. Paul admonishes us to be careful not to bind ourselves back to the law, because the law cannot free us. Only Christ can free us. Why is it wrong for us to make good intentions into things that we must do for our faith? Paul calls it slavery through the law. And when we make good intentions into things we must do for our faith, we are trusting in our actions, even when they are good practices. When we trust in our actions for our faith, we are not trusting in Christ. It is Christ that brings our salvation through faith in his law and keeping his law for us. It is Christ's work alone that brings our sanctification. Yes, Paul tells us in other places to work out our salvation or sanctification, but this is not referring to working it out. This is referring to working it out in our lives, not working to bring it into existence. When we endeavor to bring about our salvation, we are then making nothing of what Christ already did, because Christ completed the work of salvation on the cross and our sanctification through the resurrection. Is it wrong then to have practices such as church attendance, quiet time, etc.? Is it wrong to have these practices? No. These are all very fine and excellent practices and helpful for our growth in faith. But when we make them requirements, when we make them necessary things for our faith, we are moving into legalism, which is slavery. We're binding ourselves again to the law. We need to be careful not to allow what we do for our faith to become requirements for our faith. We can do these things, but we can't bind ourselves. We must find freedom. We do them out of love, not out of necessity. We need to examine ourselves. Do I have any requirements in my life of faith? Any questions or comments can be added in the comments below. Thank you.